The opportunity is very clear, and there are many good ideas out there. I think it's more like the what is the how, no? Like how do you work? How do you start your business? How do you approach government? Who are your partners that you're going to work with? You might have a very, very good idea, but you need to find the right partners.
If education sales has you second-guessing yourself, take a breath. This is a trust-first, relationship-driven market, and the old tactics, they don't translate. This show replaces guesswork with clarity and a customer acquisition system that builds a pipeline you can trust. I'm Josh Chernikoff, two-time education founder with 2 exits and a lead gen coach for companies in education. Through my ed sales elevation experience over the last 2 years, I've coached 210 companies to leads on repeat. In 2025 alone, I delivered over 2,600 hours of coaching to education companies. My co-host is John Gamba. He also has a successful exit, and now he's the Director of Innovative Programs and the Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn's Graduate School of Education. This is the only show dedicated to customer acquisition for education companies, so consistent listeners go from stalled deals to clarity, credibility, and a pipeline they can rely on. This is Ed Sales Edge, where education company founders earn their edge. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ed Sales Edge. If you've been listening the past couple of weeks, you've probably noticed we've been bringing back a few conversations from the Breaking the Grade archives. That's intentional. Every now and then, it's worth going back to conversations that were ahead of their time. What's interesting is that a year later, you don't hear the same episode. You hear different lessons because you're solving different problems. This conversation originally aired in April 2025, and I recorded it live at IFE in Monterrey, Mexico, with Beatriz Guillen, Executive Director of the Resource Foundation. So yes, you'll hear us talk about philanthropy and education in Latin America, and it is fascinating as she has such a brilliant mind. But I also want you to listen through the lens of your own business. Listen for the ideas around trust, partnerships, and what it really takes to build something that lasts. Whether you're building your first education business or growing an existing one, listen for how she thinks about partnerships instead of transactions. Pay attention to why great ideas don't automatically become great businesses. Notice the role credibility plays before anyone buys from you and how the right ecosystem can help you grow faster than trying to do everything yourself. Yeah, I think you'll come away with a completely different perspective on what it takes to build an education business that lasts. All right, let's rewind the clock a bit and head back to Monterrey, Mexico. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome to a live edition of the Ed Sales Edge. We're here in IFE in Monterrey, Mexico, and I'm here with Beatriz Guillen, who's going to say that in a much more beautiful way with her accent from Spain. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Tell us about you and your journey in education. We get a chance to meet lots of different people who have had different opportunities all over the world in education to make an impact. So tell us your story. Give us the short version, 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure. My name is Beatriz Guillen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Resource Foundation based in New York. So I've developed most of my career in Latin America, working for CAF, which is the Development Bank of Latin America. And for different reasons, I had to move to New York. And I found an opportunity to keep working for Latin America with the Resource Foundation. I'm the Executive Director of the Resource Foundation, and what we do is that we connect donors in the U.S. with local organizations in Latin America and the Caribbean. And one of the big problems that the region has is that the learning outcomes are not very good. And so we decided to focus among the granting that we do, how can we focus more and how can we add more value in the education space?
I, I don't believe in coincidences, but how amazing is it that you landed in New York at that position? I mean, it sounds like just a perfect place. How long have you been there, and talk about your role?
Sure. So the Resource Foundation has almost 40 years of doing, of being the bridge between donors, mainly corporates in the U.S. and organizations in Latin America. And I've been in my position for a year and a half. And it was looking at the portfolio that I realized 50% of our portfolio was in education projects. And we felt there was a need of how can we add more value to the organizations that we are working with, because the projects that we had been supporting felt a bit, not coordinated or discoordinated, that we could, with the money that we are investing, we could have much more impact. So it all started with that, this idea of how can we have more impact, especially because we saw how venture capital funding for edtechs dropped 90%. So we need to make philanthropic capital more effective. So how can we do that? That was the question that we asked ourselves a year ago.
So you take the job a year and a half ago. A year ago, you asked yourselves this question, and what are some of the results? We're sitting here at a table in Monterey looking at a PowerPoint presentation or a Canva or slides or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So talk us through what you found, and then we're gonna take deeper.
Sure. It's the first time that we're sharing with the world the results. Breaking news. So the report is going to be open to the public and published in, I guess it's going to be March. Editing process takes a bit. But what we can show, what we can share, of course, is that we found, and that's not something that's new for anyone, but we have, Latin America faces a lot of, lack of quality of education. And one of the numbers that struck me was that by 2030, 50% of the population is not going to be ready for the workforce is not going to be ready for the job opportunities. So we have a problem there. And 80% of sixth graders don't understand text, cannot interpret or understand a text. So, and on the other side, we saw that there's investment. Access has been growing, but quality has not been growing. So what's happening, right? So we saw that the main problem is that there's a lack of coordination among the different actors. We know that. But also that the investment doesn't go to core learning, especially in K-12. So the rest of the world, investment in education, around 55% is spent or it goes to core learning in K-12. In Latin America, that's only a 19%. So the reason is because business in K-12 space is B2G. And B2G is risky. Procurement, processes are very long. It's not very reliable. So private sector does not want to work there, even if it's the sector that needs most, support.
Quick pause. If this is already hitting you, if you're realizing you don't want to disappear this summer, but you also don't want to burn yourself out, we're putting together something simple for you. It's called the 90-Day Founder Challenge. It helps you decide what to sell, who to focus on, what relationships to build, and what rhythm to follow over the next 90 days. Text 90 days to 771-333-4233 and we'll send it to you. And if you're a teacher founder who wants help thinking through your next 30 days, text me too. All right, let's get practical.
So we've been looking at examples. Fortunately, there are examples of organizations that have been able to sort of crack the nut or crack the code?
You can crack a nut too.
Crack the code, and exactly that's the name of the organization that has done that in Colombia and Peru, Crack the Code. that has been able to do that. And in a very interesting model where government, private sector, and philanthropy have worked together to provide digital skills to organizations, to students in middle and high school. We have that example in Colombia and Peru. We have Letrus in Brazil, a very, very good example. Letrus more focused on literacy, basic literacy and math. Crack the Code is more focused on digital skills. So it's working, like it's workforce development from school, if you think about this, because a very small percentage of students go to university. So how can we prepare, these students to exit school and be ready for the job market? So that was one of the recommendations. But we also saw that there's very little evidence of what works and what does not work. So the government is not buying, in many cases, is not buying edtech solutions because they don't know what works and what doesn't work. And we've talked to government officials who complain about, we have all this pressure from edtechs, but we don't know which one to choose. So I don't know if education or buyer building capacities for buyers, government, but also teachers would be also very important to help, develop this K to 12 segment and, create more business for edtechs. So it's not only, philanthropy can help with, building these partnerships with the public sector, but philanthropy can also help in other ways. So there's different ways, and we have different recommendations on the study. I'm not going to say all of them so that people read it.
Okay.
But
that's a nice teaser.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the way my brain works. And sometimes this isn't the best way, but I hear opportunity.
Yes.
And so for our audience to say, okay, I hear the challenge. Obviously, the numbers that you're saying back that up.
Mm-hmm.
See it as an opportunity. How would you?
Yeah, and I think the opportunity, as you said, is very clear. I would think, and there are many good ideas out there. I think it's more like the what is the how, no? Like how do you work? How do you start your business? How do you approach government? Who are your partners that you're going to work with? I would definitely. And that's sometimes not their responsibility, but more of like organizations like mine that mobilize philanthropic capital. How can we, support all these edtechs, especially in early stage? How can we support them to succeed? Because sometimes they have a very good product, but they don't find the funding. There's no funding for innovation. There's no funding, no patient capital to work with governments, because as we were saying, these are long, buying processes. So it's more of like you might have a very, very good idea, but you need to find the right partners.
The right partners, I would imagine, are out there. And those are the donors that can work well. How do you find these donors? How do you vet these donors? And I'm sure they're very big donors, so they don't need much vetting. But you do a little bit like of a matching service?
It's yes. It's some donors come already with their ideas, but we see more and more, especially tech companies, that are willing to expand to Latin America, that ask us for some advice. Who should I work with? How should I? And sometimes they ask, who should I work with? And part of the reason of this study or this diagnostic that we've done is to show them that it's how do you work. That also applies for donors. It's not like partner with one organization, but think of like more of an ecosystem or a systemic way. So maybe partner with an accelerator and give them funding so that they pick the right winners or the right edtechs so that they can scale. Okay. So that could be something what we would advise them. So it's more part of this we did this study with McKinsey so that we have more credibility. We can go to these donors and say, look, this is how you should be working, and this is how your money could have much more impact if you work in a different way than what you've been doing until now. And some donors are very sophisticated and are doing things right, but it's not the majority.
And this is exactly why we've been building the education sales entourage, because a 90-day plan is helpful. But a 90-day plan inside the right room is much more powerful. You need a place to bring your questions, your target buy, your offer, your messy message, the thing you keep circling but haven't acted on yet. That's what the entourage is becoming, a working room for education founders. So if you're already inside, use the room. And if you're not yet, go to school.com/entourage. All right, back to the show. Are you able to tell us some of the donors that you work with?
Yes. Yes. I mean, we've worked for a very long time with American Express, and with Estee Lauder, with the Standard & Poor's, Deutsche Bank, so many financial institutions. And we are now switching towards more like tech companies, so that, to be able to help them towards, these support to edtechs in Latin America.
So, as you travel around Latin America to business in Latin, education systems lacking, if you said one or two or three things that you're giving people a bullseye to essentially aim their company at, pressing issues that need to be addressed?
So, for sure, I mean, we mentioned evidence. That's one that, but that's more, I don't know how, that's another space for philanthropy. It's like, and Jacobs Foundation, I'm sure you know about them, but that's where they've been doing incredible work. But pressing issues, I think, it's like language skills, English. We see that and it's also very important for then employment opportunities. Digital skills in schools, K-12. Okay. And I'm going to focus more on K-12 just because, that's where we see the need. And I think we see more and more, work with that AI is going to help teachers. So always you can have the best solution, a tech solution, but if the teacher does not adopt it, then it's not going to work. And it's very interesting to see how AI, for the first time, I feel it's like putting the eye into the teachers, focusing on teachers and helping them. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. It's like, how do we, bring, train teachers, motivate them on how to work with edtechs, and how to, AI is helping them tailor their curriculum, provide a more personalized attention. There's a very good organization called Nova Escola in Brazil, and they work with 600,000 teachers. Talk about scale. They are a nonprofit, but they are thinking of becoming a for-profit, just because there's more money for innovation in the private sector than in, if you're a nonprofit. So that's a good thing about being, an edtech, a company. It's that there's more money for innovation that's in the nonprofit sector, even if it sounds counterintuitive. But this is the case of, an organization that's a nonprofit that's saying, I think I might turn into a for-profit.
So it's a really fascinating job that you have. And so my last question is just
talk to us about what a day in the life is like for you. Because I feel like
you're rolling up your sleeves at noon, and then you're probably, maybe I'm wrong, and you're in New York City, going to these big parties, give or take, with American Express and all these big global companies.
Yeah.
And so you see both ends of it. What's a day in the life for you?
Yeah. You see both ends. That's That's true. And part of my work is a lot of, advocacy towards Latin America, because even if it's such a strategic region for the U.S., and I think we will be hearing about Latin America more and more in the news with this new administration, only 6% of international granting in the U.S. goes to Latin America. So part of my work is a lot of advocacy of why is it important to work with Latin America? Why is the business case and also the social case for the U.S., And so it's very important for me to also stay in touch with the region and the organizations, even if my work is primarily with donors, because it gives me, the urgency of the work that we do. Because you see how they struggle, to find funding. Now USAID, has cut funding, so it's more and more important to work towards getting more grants towards the region. But it's a bit of a dual reality, because you have one foot in one part and one foot in the other. But yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating. It's very challenging, but I think it's important, to keep, to be in New York, but also with constant contact with Latin America.
Quick pause before we wrap. This is the work we help founders do inside the ed sales revenue machine and the education sales entourage. Get clear on your perfect client. Tighten your offer. Build the right relationships. Create the rhythm. And stop guessing alone. If you want the simple planning tool from today's conversation, text 90 days to 7713334-233. We'll send you the 90-day Founder Challenge. And if you want the room where founders are doing this work together, go to school.com/entourage. All right, let's close this out. It's a very different scale, but one of the things that I taught is that we need to walk into the schools. In my second business,
I basically lived on I-95. Still have different, but driving a Jeep Wrangler on 95 is not very easy. But I went to all these different schools to get to see the kids. That was energy, to get to shake the hands of the principals or the superintendents. And then at night, to parts of D.C., Maryland, Northern Virginia, Greenwich, Westchester. Then I'd go to these nice dinners. And so I saw both ends of it. In terms of being a business owner, I was there. I was eye to eye with these kids, shaking hands with the principals, and then spending time at night with superintendents. And then it always reminds me from a business ownership standpoint
that you can go from the penthouse to the outhouse in a matter of minutes. Yesterday, I was leading a new cohort, 10 wonderful companies in education. So proud of them.
And we upgraded our systems and completely screwed getting them access to the course. It's our mistake, and I'm embarrassed that happened. But, as you upgrade systems, things break. So I'm always fascinated by people and the positions that they're in, to give the perspective to our audience so that they understand that whether you are the founder or the CEO, whatever your title is, it's important that you are in those schools, experiencing the highs and the lows. It sounds like you're doing that.
Yeah. No, 100%. And and part of, I think, that the work that we want to accomplish with this study and the work that we do is how to grow the market for edtechs. And for that, you need philanthropy, you need governments, and you need the private sector. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us, to work together towards, better education, better learning outcomes, more impact at the end.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, and then also going a little bit deeper to indulge me on your job. I found it very fascinating. At least the show. And then for everybody listening, they'll look in the show notes, and hopefully we can put terms to
Yeah.
the study.
Yeah. Thank you so much for helping us share this work.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
All right, that's it for this episode of the Ed Sales Edge. Thanks for joining us. If you sell into education, the goal of this show is very simple: to help you stop guessing what actually moves deals in a system where trust matters. If you want to go deeper, join us inside the Entourage, our private community for education founders and operators selling into schools. You'll see the details in the show notes. If this episode helped you think more clearly, that's great. Subscribe, like it, and share it with another founder in the education space. Until next time, get clear, build trust, set up a system for sales, and keep earning your edge.